Welcome to Inside the 90. I'm Jamie Mullican. I'm your host. And today we're here to dig into what it looks like to live inside the 90-day world of EOS. And super excited to have Reid Wylie with S&L Integrated and Jeff Ruby, who is S&L Integrated's EOS implementer. So, Reid, let's just jump right in. Tell me, where did you first discover EOS?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. So EOS came to us from two locations simultaneously in our business. Our owner was familiar with a person in the town where our company's based, and this guy leads some teams of business individuals in the community, and he's been an evangelist for EOS for years there in Thomasville, Georgia. And so he had been talking to our owner about this. Hey, do you know anything about EOS? Have you guys ever done EOS? And so he finally kind of broke through to our owner, and owner mentioned, hey, I've been hearing a lot about this EOS thing. Simultaneously, a member of our team, somebody that had been with us for many years, left and went and worked in another company. And that other company that he was working for was had fully implemented EOS. They were a pure EOS organization. And he worked with them for about a year, maybe a little bit more. And then he came back to us, and he came back saying, hey, we have got to do this. And so when those two things converged, our owner hearing about it and being interested from somebody he knew and respected in the community, and then a previous employee coming back and saying, hey, this was really effective in another organization. That's where we heard about it, and when we said, all right, we need to dig in, explore this, and see what EOS is all about, and would it help us as a business.
And then from that, what was your introduction to Jeff? How did y'all meet?
So Jeff was not the first EOS introduction we made. Our business is spread across three very distinct geographic regions. We have three locations. Our home office is in a small town in Southwest Georgia called Thomasville. Then we have a presence in Atlanta, Georgia, and then Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I am. So not knowing anything about EOS, I got onto the EOS Worldwide website, started digging around, found out they have the Find an Implementer tool, and just started looking for people here in Nashville. And we talked with someone, but realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to be a good fit for us, since most of our team was based in Southwest Georgia. And so went back to the EOS Worldwide tool and did the search around Thomasville, and got on and saw Jeff's picture first of all, and just seeing him on the internet really drew us to him. Who could resist somebody like Jeff? And but read his bio on there and just felt like, hey, that speaks to us. And reached out to him, did our 90-minute call with him, and kind of the rest is history over the last 2 years.
Jeff, on that's one of the things a lot of people ask is where to start. And I'm always telling people just do the 90-minute call, with an implementer. From your side, you get a lead, it sounds like, off the website, right? And now you're going into that 90-day call. What was that introduction to SNL Integrated like for you?
It's fairly typical. It comes in sometimes different ways, but when Reid reached out to me and I reached back out to him, I still remember where I was. I was at a conference, and I was walking around kind of behind the scenes and talking with Reid, and he explained the story just like he just explained it, except the part about not being able to resist my bio and my picture on the internet. I didn't know that, but so that's new. But we had a good, comfortable conversation. It was very comfortable, and we decided to jump right into the 90-minute meeting after that, like Reid said, and we had a virtual 90-minute meeting, which is not unusual. And they brought quite a few people to the call. It wasn't just the leadership team. I think they wanted some other folks to get eyes on it as well. And it was good. It was a very comfortable call. They pelted me with some questions, and it's EOS speaks for itself, and especially if folks have read the book Traction, and many of them, I always say, it seems like in the world that we live in, if you take 10 entrepreneurs, 8 of them have heard of the book Traction. 6 of them probably have it on their shelf. 4 of them will tell you they read it, and 1 or 2 of them are actively looking for an implementer. So, they were in that zone where they had talked to some folks, read the book, and it was kind of mine to mess up at that point. And I follow the path. I fully believe in the process. It's our first step of our proven process is that 90-minute meeting. And like I said, it was very comfortable, both sides. And I think it wasn't long thereafter Reid reached out and we scheduled Focus Day.
Very cool. Reid, on your side, you talked about kind of converging, introductions to EOS. What position were you all in? Like pre-EOS, deciding to, take that step, do that 90-minute meeting. Where were y'all as an organization? What ceiling had you hit, or what was the challenge you were facing?
Absolutely. Yeah, we certainly were hitting a ceiling. From a growth standpoint, we had kind of plateaued, had some years of growth behind us, but then had kind of settled in to what was fairly comfortable, but not where our owner wanted to be. He didn't want to just kind of stop where we were at that point. And so from a revenue standpoint, profitability standpoint, just kind of flat. And so we were actively, I was new in my role. At the time I had been with the company for a little while, but new in that role, and was kind of tasked with, all right, how do we get to the next level? What's the next step in the journey, the next kind of season of maturation in our business? And that's what was really appealing about EOS, is that it was a system that made sense at every level. It was logical. It's the thing, when you read EOS, when you talk, it's like, man, these are the things we should have been doing all along, but we just didn't have a good process for it. We didn't have the language around it. We didn't have buy-in to each step. And EOS is kind of a package that can contain all of these really good business principles. Again, the things that we know intuitively, but we just didn't have the ability to implement them all ourselves, like I say, without the language and the processes that EOS brings.
So what was that vision? So you said the visionary wanted more growth. Like how much growth, how much more growth, how long until we hit that growth? Like what was that vision part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like most visionaries, he just wants more growth, right? That's kind of where his mind was. Where do we need to be? More, bigger, more places, serving more customers, doing more services offered. And that, again, is where EOS is really helpful, because it forces you to start better defining your vision and the outcomes that you want, and then to measure against them. So that for us, became really helpful in that, hey, we've got a 10-year target. Ours is a revenue goal by 2032, and we know where we're going. We know where we want to be, and then it's just that simple process of breaking it down from that 10-year target to, what does it look like in 3 years? If we're on the pathway to 10, what's the next 3 years look like? And then now let's dig specifically into this year. What do we need to accomplish this year in order to get one step closer to that 10-year target? And so that, like I say, it was really helpful for us from that visionary mindset of just knowing we wanted to do more, but not knowing what that more was.
Yeah. And then, Jeff, starting on that focus day, you talked about there were multiple people involved on the 90-minute call. As far as the focus day, when you met with them, like what did you begin to uncover there?
Well, Reid and I talked about the best people to be there at Focus Day, and I always say it's the trusted, sort of your trusted counsel, as Jim Collins would say. You want it to be, less is more. We want to be able to be agile, want people to be able to speak open, honestly about where you are, where you want to go. We don't want a lot of fluff in the room on focus day. We want to be able to get traction right away. And that's always a challenging conversation, because if you've not embarked on this journey before, you don't know what you're getting into. And in most people's world, less doesn't mean more. The human brain thinks that more is more. And they came to Focus Day. SNL Integrated came to Focus Day with I think 2 less than they have on the leadership team today. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4 of you. And it was a good day. We instantly began to unpack, where there was, where the ceiling was, and organizations hit ceilings 3 different ways. Individuals hit ceilings, or departments hit ceilings, and then companies themselves hit a ceiling. But the idea here is just to give you a quick snapshot of this. If an organization's hitting the ceiling, there was a department that hit the ceiling first, then there were individuals hit the ceiling, and hitting the ceiling's not a bad thing. It's when you don't do something about it that could be a bad thing. And so we began to really see in that day there were some things that were hindrances to growth. And just by that first day, set those initial rocks and getting that first scorecard marked out, get that accountability chart tuned up, getting the meeting pulse established, and then saying, okay, here you go, get started. I think our Focus Day was interesting. It was challenging for sure, because like Reid said, the visionary was very, he's a very insistent, he's very typical visionary, knows that he wants to go forward, doesn't know exactly what he wants, but knows that he wants to go forward. And the team was amenable to that, but there's always this trepidation of, okay, we haven't been able to figure it out yet. How is this system actually going to help us do it? And but it was a good solid Focus Day. So I don't remember what your question was, but did I answer it?
Yeah. Just what did it look like, for that day?
Yeah.
And then Reid, so y'all left your Focus Day, you're getting this thing rolled out. What did it feel like for the team after that day? Now, the next morning, obviously at the end of that day, you're tired.
I will say, let me say one thing. Wait, let me just jump in real quick, Reid, before you speak, because I do want to say something to maybe just tee this up for you, because, and I want to be clear, and I want to be careful, but not too careful. SNL on Focus Day was not the same as they are today. I don't want to go so far as to say they were dysfunctional, but they were as dysfunctional as any emerging growth company is that doesn't have a real plan and good, solid accountability measures or disciplines in place. They had a tremendous amount of want and drive. They got along very, very well together, almost too well. They were very, very close. So that first day, getting them to open up and be open and honest with each other was a bit of a challenge. And I think everybody in the room admitted this is going to be tough for us, because we really like each other and we really work well together and we're very close. And so that presented its own challenges. But just to say, I'll toss over to Reid, but just to say they are clearly not the same team today as they were on Focus Day. I mean, it's light years, and SNL Integrated is a poster child for EOS implementation. I will tell you that. I say that all the time. So.
Well, I forgot to ask a date on that. How long ago was that? How long have y'all been working together?
I think that was February 2022. Is that right, Jeff?
Was it really? Well,
or 2023?
Yeah, I think it's 2023.
Okay.
It was Q1 of 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all, it's been 2 years now.
Yeah.
So let's take that, Reid. So in that 2 years, kind of coming out of that Focus Day, between leaving that and where you are today, at what point did you start to feel, traction?
Well, I will say coming out of that day, to the best of my memory, we came out very enthusiastic. Um, we came out really believing that this was the direction we wanted to go. We wanted to work with Jeff as our implementer through this whole process. And so, yeah, it was hard, and I certainly feel like, we came out of that day feeling a little beat up, and in a good way, just challenged beyond where we had ever been before. But we were also the kind of team that responded to that and with enthusiasm. And, I think, after the focus day, we realized, hey, there are maybe a couple of holes missing on this team. And there are a couple of other people in the organization that we want to be a part of this journey. And so, we talked about that. We kind of started bringing those people in. And, but I'll say for our leadership team, I don't know that we would say we got really any traction until after VB2. I think it took us, that's kind of a 90-day cycle, right? From focus day to the end of VB2. And it took us that long, to get into the rhythm, to feel comfortable with our scorecard, to really feel confident that we had the people on this team that needed to be there. Jeff talked about the number of people that were on the initial 90-minute call. That was our leadership team at that point. We brought everybody that was quote unquote on our leadership team into that call. And then to Jeff's point, kind of immediately narrowed that team down to just 4 people for focus day, and then kind of expanded it a little bit after that. But I think once we got through VB2, once we had kind of done the reps, in our meeting pulse, had worked through, a whole cycle with rocks, then I would say our leadership team was gaining traction at the end of that time.
And organizationally, going back to 2 years ago, what size organization were you? Had 3 locations. How many employees did y'all have?
We had about 30 employees at that time.
And how long had y'all been in business?
We started in 99, so at that time it would have been just short of 25 years.
Okay. And then during that 90 days, that first 90 days, when did that vision of grow actually come more tangible, and what did that start to look like?
Well, part of the beauty of EOS is creating small wins all along the pathway, and it gives you a lot of confidence. So getting to-dos done and actually, seeing them on a list and then watching them get crossed off together in a meeting. Seeing rocks that you've been working on and then having, they've been on track, but then you get to the end of the 90 days and they're marked off. Then you start believing maybe we can actually accomplish the bigger things that we've set for the year. As opposed to previously what we would do, right, is at the beginning of the year, we would sit down and put a whole bunch of stuff in a spreadsheet that we wanted to do for the year. We'd have 10 or 12. We want to do all these things. And then, in July, somebody might go, hey, what about all that stuff we said we were going to do? And then we just feel like this guilt and shame, like, oh, we just got so busy keeping the, trains running on time that we really only got 1 or 2 of these things done. And we got them done by accident. We got forced into it. And so for us, it was seeing the small wins, to-dos, rocks, and then knowing, look, when we focus our energy, we can do a lot. We can get a lot accomplished. And so that's when we started believing, and in that vision building, that second vision building day, we kind of committed to the 10-year target and how we were going to get there. And like I say, we were already at a point where we believed we could do it because of what we had seen over the last 90 days.
And Jeff, you're talking about today, S&L Integrated is really a poster child for EOS. At what point did you realize that in the journey? At what points did you observe, all right, this is clicking?
I would say, and not to talk Reid up, but Reid is what really makes this thing go is you've got to have the right person in the integrator seat. And Reid took it serious from day one. I mean, he was very, we'd get finished with focus day, and Reid was, immediately asking for feedback. What can I be doing differently? How can I get the team to talk? How can I do this? How can I do that? And he's just always been very on the forefront of that. I think coming out of preseason, I call it preseason, after you get through we get to VB2, I think the average is 50% rock accomplishment at Vision Building Day 2, because a lot of people fumble around. I think SNL Integrator was likely higher than that on their rock accomplishment. Reid took it very seriously, and the team took it seriously. And Jason, the visionary, let Reid go, let him run it, and let him have the autonomy that he needed to really get his team harmonized. So I knew very early on it was clicking. It wasn't a strain. It wasn't an energy drain. That we were together in lockstep. But I would say the first annual that we did was a real, like, a defining moment, because I think that was the moment when, right around that time, maybe shortly thereafter, I remember us talking about, hey, you guys know that what you're experiencing isn't happen chance. I mean, they're not in a market that is that's a market that you would label as a niche booming market right now. That people are clamoring to. If anything, their market maybe experience a little bit more of a bearish tension than a bullish tension, right? So they actually had to go out and make it happen and really exploit that niche and exploit that target market, and they did those things. But I started getting phone calls from some of the key members on the leadership team, just saying, "Hey, listen, I want to run a better department level 10 meeting. Would you sit in on that level 10 meeting with me? Here's my scorecard. What do you think?" And that those things started happening along the way very early on. But I would say that first, which would have been about 3/4 in, that first annual was when I'm like, yeah, these guys got this.
Yeah,
these guys got this.
And that's that's part of that journey too. As this isn't read a book, hire an implementer, and we're crushing it, right? You're talking about this. You guys, you took the EOS, you were ready for it, you were engaged, and it takes 3/4, right? Now you're clicking and you're clicking through it. Then you get the annual, and it's the gap in the gain idea, right? It's like, look,
Yeah.
if you look at how far we got to go, it's like, wow, we got a long ways ahead of us. But when you look back and see how much ground you covered in 6 or 9 months, it's just cool.
Yeah.
On that, I guess from a visionary and integrator relationship, Reid, when pre-EOS, it sounds like y'all had a great relationship as a leadership team, but how did your role or your relationship, your communication, your alignment change between you and Jason once y'all started rolling out EOS?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeff kind of referenced the closeness of this team, and we have all known each other for a long time, even before we worked together. So the 4 guys that showed up at Focus Day, we had all known each other for more than 10 years.
Wow.
We had not, like I said, we had not all worked together those 10 years, but we knew each other. So we had developed a lot of trust and camaraderie, through friendship and personal, personal ways, but also professional ways too. In stepping into the integrator role, we kind of made that decision through that first 90-day cycle. I was not that previously. Okay. I was just one of the team members at the leadership level. And so for us, I had, the one of the big differences was me stepping into that integrator role and then actually taking over supervision and care for the other leadership team members in our organization. So our CFO, our sales leader, VP of sales, our operations director, and director of services. So that was a big change for us. And then it put me as the only person reporting to Jason, where previously you had a bunch of different people that were trying to report to Jason, who is the visionary and has, again, it's that typical visionary. And so I think that helped a lot. It relieved some managerial pressure from him and allowed him to kind of step back and do some of the other things that he really wanted to do, that he enjoyed. And it allowed us to deepen our level of trust with one another because we would, meet regularly, talk about the things that he's seeing or the organization, the things I'm seeing, what I'm working on, what he's working on. And it's been a really good step for us and our organization. And we still have a ways to go, right? I don't want to give the impression that, man, we cleared that first annual and everything's been perfect and we don't have anywhere else to grow. We still have opportunity to grow. They are in that visionary integrator role to continue to develop that so that our organization continues to push, right? Because that's what the visionary does, is push and push. And so that's not in my nature as much. My nature is to create systems and to keep people accountable and to make sure everything's still going forward. And so we're going to need that in the next 7 or 8 years to get to that 10-year target for that visionary integrator relationship to stay strong and for it to keep developing in a way that challenges me and that I challenge the visionary, and that then together we both kind of bring the rest of the team along with us.
And so you've got the good VI relationship, you've got your leadership team, but you have 3 locations and y'all are in the AV integration business. So there's a lot of, out in the field type of work, I would assume. What did it look like to go from a leadership team now to a multi-location rollout, bringing employees into the fold? How did y'all go about that?
Yeah, well, we had already come through 2020 and the adoption of everybody on, Microsoft Teams or Windows and doing meetings remotely. So that is one thing that helped us in a lot of ways, is that our team had already, we had wide adoption of video conferencing technology. It's also what we specialize in, right? That's what we go and install and service for people. And so we're experts in video conferencing and video meetings. And so we were able to roll out EOS to every level of our organization. We never considered, this is just for the leadership team, or this is just for the operation staff, or this is just for the in-office staff. For us, it was all or nothing, and we put it in, implemented it all the way through down to the field service people. Now, what that did was we had to say, we believe this is so important that once a week for about an hour, we need our field personnel to be stationary somewhere with a good internet connection so that they can join their departmental L10. Now, does that mean that they could have been out, generating revenue by closing a ticket or working? Yes. But we believe the benefit of being in that level 10 meeting every week, working on rocks, making sure your to-dos are done, that the long-term payoff on that was far more than the quote unquote sacrifice we had to make by carving out that hour once a week.
Very cool. What, Jeff, from your side, what have you seen that was, all of us think our businesses are unique and different than anyone else's. But there's also a lot of commonality, but really, for S&L Integrated, when you look at them, what are some of the things that you see that you're like, hey, this was a unique challenge. This was a unique just belief that they brought to this? Like, is there anything really unique about SNL Integrated that you think has led to their success?
Well, you mentioned gap in the gain. I think, the key thing, and we discussed this early on. You've got to be in the gap. Or, I'm sorry, you got to be in the gain. You can't be in the gap when you look at these things. And it's talk about rollout. Most of the companies I work with are contractors and or have field personnel. And so, the question that comes up quite a bit, and I'm sure it came up by Reid or somebody on the team when we began to talk about rollout and, how far down do we go? Should we be having level 10 meetings, at the next level and level before that? Should we be having level 10 meetings with our field personnel? My standard answer is only if you want them to receive the goodness that you've received. So if what you're feeling feels productive and worthwhile, and you want them to feel that, then you'll do it. But nothing's mandatory, right? So, and I think when you present those things that way, let's face it, and I'll say this just in case any implementers happen to be watching or listening to this podcast. It's very easy as an implementer to get insistent about what you want a company to do. We're sitting here, we want a success story. We want to do it by the book. We want to see this thing go straight down, but the reality is EOS is caught. It's not taught. And, so I think if we can make it a comfortable journey at the top and continue to encourage that comfortable journey down to the next level and then to the next level. So what Reid's talking about is just remaining in that approach state, or remaining in the gain, and saying things like, hey, listen, taking somebody out of the field for, an hour to sharpen the saw, to work together as a team. It's more important for us to be healthy than it is for us to try to be profitable, right? Because if we're healthy, we're going to be profitable. If we provide the platform for people to communicate, they're going to feel heard and understood. They're going to be bought in. And I just think that Reid and his leadership team have just done an exceptional job at recognizing that they have had such great results at the leadership level that they just really believe. I believe that they believe that they want everybody in the organization to feel that goodness. I mean, that was the theme of the annual this year was if we could just get everybody to not do what we do or be as productive as we are or be as smart as we are. They said if we could get everybody in the organization be as happy and as engaged as we are at this table, and there's no stopping us. And that's to Reid you and your leadership team, that may come naturally, but you'd be surprised about how challenging it is to get leadership teams to just stop for a minute and allow that to happen inside the organization.
Yeah, and so going back to that focus day, one of the things that I see, some people have it and they latch onto it, and some people really struggle with are two key components, which is your purpose, passion, and cause, that foundational, and then core values. And from Reid, as y'all dug into those, where were you, and what did unpacking that start to look like?
Yeah, like a lot of organizations, we had a mission statement, vision statement. We had a whole list of values prior to implementing EOS and working through the VTO. But that process really helped us maybe redefine or sharpen who we were. And so, now we say that we simplify the complex for our customers. That's our purpose, passion, and cause. We want to get up every morning, and whether we're working externally with a customer or our, customer is an internal stakeholder, we want to approach our work and go, is this a simple process? How can I make it, more simple for our customer? We know that most people don't love technology. They don't like a complex AV system that takes hours of training and a 20-page manual to operate. They want it to be simple. And so we try to approach our system design that way. We want our salespeople to approach their customers that, hey, it's easy to do business with us. We're gonna walk you through every step of the way. And then we just hammer that home in our niche. We carve that out. Look, we don't do everything. We do audio-visual system sales, design, installation, and service. That's it. We don't do everything that a quote-unquote low-voltage contractor can do. We know what we do well, and we want to focus on that and be the best that we can, and do it for companies that operate and that value technology, that operate in the Southeast and value technology to enhance their experiences. So we define it that way. And then for us, just 3 values: character, passion, quality. I don't know, Jamie, you probably don't have time for me to do the entire speech right here.
Oh, we do. This is a test. If you got it, let's hear it.
Yeah, but for us, character means we lead by example. We believe that in our organization, every job is everybody's, right? Nobody gets to say, that's not my job, I don't do that. If you see something that needs to be done, do it, regardless of whether it's yours. We want to make a positive impact on everybody we come in contact with. So leading by example for us means that we make a positive impact every day on internal stakeholders and our external customers. For us, so that's character. For us, passion means that we're fearlessly curious. We're in the technology industry, so we can't afford to get locked into a certain way of doing something. We can't afford to install yesterday's technologies today. And so we want our employees to always be bettering themselves, to be growing, to be learning, to be on the cutting edge of what they can do, both from a technical standpoint, but also from a personal development standpoint. And so we're going to find ways to give them training, to reimburse them for certifications and testing that they may want to take, make space for them to learn and grow on their own, both, like I say, technically, but also professionally. And then finally, quality. We say quality is just doing things right. We're at our heart, we are a small business that started in a small town in Southwest Georgia. And, my dad grew up, I've heard it, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Mm-hmm. And we want to approach everything that we do with that mindset of quality, that it needs to be the best it can be every time, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And it doesn't matter, like I say, if a customer's going to see it or not, if it's behind something or underneath a table or hidden in a closet, that it should look just as good as the thing that's on stage that everybody can see. And so we want to bring our best to every situation, every encounter, every customer conversation. So for us, like I say, 3 things: character, passion, and quality define who we are and how we work every day.
That is awesome. As a brand guy, and messaging is what I get passionate about. What you want to do is find that language that's authentic and real, and that just naturally, you can tell a story with, and it feels right. And I can tell that y'all didn't hire a marketing agency to do that. That's just authenticity right there. So just curious on that, did you land on you gave some really good details about, bringing the best to everything and, doing things right. You said, every job is everybody's responsibility. Like, were those the things that then led to this label or these, character, passion, and quality, or was character, passion, and quality where you landed, and then y'all broke that down by just seeing people live those out?
Yeah. And Jeff may want to tell the story in a different way. But the way I remember this is that we just talked about the kind of people that we were, the employees that we have, the people on the leadership team. What do we expect from ourselves? What do we expect our people to do in the field? And so all of those things started coming up, making a positive impact, doing whatever needs to get done, regardless of whether it's your job or not. Always doing your best, whether somebody's looking at you or not. Learning and growing. Making that a part of our. And so we started talking about all of those things, and then as we talked about them, we realized, hey, these are really kind of all forming around three areas: character, passion, and quality.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, that's kind of how it came about. Again, Jeff may tell the story in a different way because he was leading us through that process as our shepherd. And so he may have a different recollection, but that's the way I remember it.
Yeah, it was very. You're spot on. It is the mechanics of it are interesting. I take a little different approach. I have what's called a core value maker. So the way I bring everybody through is I have them write down 10 things, attitudes, characteristics, behaviors that they despise, and then they turn those things inside out and talk. And then we sort of put them up on the board in groups of 3. And like Reid said, so that way they can kind of see things with their own eyes about how everybody's thinking. And then from that, so Reid told the story just right. And from that comes, and I always encourage a team to come up with 3 because, most people remember the 3 Stooges, but they can't remember the Little Rascals or the 7 Dwarfs. So try to, if you add 1 or 2 more, that's okay. But if you can live with 3, and they did, and
we have tried. We have tried adding core values a couple of times through this process, and we haven't been successful yet. We have found a place for those ideas to live within our existing core values.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's also a thing too, I try to explain to clients, friends, anyone who's in the core values exercise is draft them and live with them, marinate in them quarter by quarter, and you'll test them, and when you're testing against them, you'll find the ones that are right. And when they're right, you'll actually realize how right they are. And you don't, you're now, those are actually driving all the decisions. So very cool. Well, here as we wrap up the episode, I always like talking about, 2 things. One is, of the 20 tools, in EOS, Reid, which one personally have you latched on to?
Well, unfortunately, Jamie, this is like asking you which one of my children is my favorite. They're all my favorite, right? I find value in them all, and I love them equally. But
when forced to choose your child, which one are you going to choose?
But if I'm going to pick one, I'm actually going to pick 3, and for 3 different reasons. So L10 meetings, that has the most week in and week out impact in our business. I think if you went through our organization and asked them what's had the biggest impact on us in the last 2 years and your experience, it would be L10 meetings. So that's a huge tool, and love it because of the impact that it has for everybody in the organization, and it just drives them to be, better teams. The people analyzer, trying to make determinations about RPRS issues is so hard. Mm-hmm. And as leaders, we're asked to make those decisions all the time, and so many times it boils down to what's the last thing that happened with this person. Do I have a positive feeling about my last interaction or the last thing I know about them, or do I have a negative feeling? Well, People Analyzer takes all that out. And so it allows you to look at people and to determine, is this person the right cultural fit? And do they understand and have the ability and the desire to do the job they've been asked to do? And so that has a huge impact on people and culture in our organization. And then delegate and elevate. This is one that we continue to struggle with on our leadership team level because we are doers, we are accomplishers. We like to roll up our sleeves and dig in and get work done. But that has a long-term impact and can hinder the growth of our company and the growth of our team members. And so for a long-term impact, delegate and elevate is playing a huge part in who we are right now in the company. So I'm sorry I didn't give you one answer. I knew we were going to get to this question. And I tried to come up with it, but I'm like, hey, if short term, level 10s: people and culture, people analyzer, and then for me, long term, it's delegating and elevating with the leadership team, and then the level right below that.
Oh, that's awesome. No, it just everybody does find something that they either latch on to or it worked for them. And with 20 tools, sometimes some get mentioned fewer than others. So just always like bringing that question back up. And then Jeff, you mentioned that you work with a good amount of clients who have like field service or out in the field. If someone's listening to this today and they're interested in hiring an implementer, and they're a good fit for you, like what's that look like for you? Who are you looking for, and who do you like to work with?
Open, honest, vulnerable, reasonable, willing to let go, and they want to grow. They're almost more fearful of. So change is a crazy thing, right? It's I think next to spiders and speaking in public, change has probably got to be in the top range of people's biggest fear. But I would say the teams that I'm accustomed to working for are almost more fearful of the status quo than they are of change. And so that's what that seems to be the ideal. I also say, and this probably goes for most implementers, not just myself, but I just had a conversation with a guy earlier today. I said, just so you know, I have the ability to give you low, medium, and high. Let me explain what that is. Low is I could come in and just watch what you're doing, nod my head, and check the box, collect the check, and move on to the next deal. I said, but just so you know, I probably would only do that once or twice. So don't pick me if let's not work together if that's going to be it, because I'm not capable of low. Medium means you could do most of the work. We can make some adaptations, reasonable adaptations. I'll give you a little bit of room to roam. I'll open up the guardrails a little bit. And high means I can really kind of hone you. I can really, tighten up the clamp a little bit, really bring in and press in on you based on my experience and help you, squeeze you a little harder. And I think you'll get the results a little quicker. So I'm really looking at people that say, hey, listen, go ahead and squeeze us a little bit, squeeze us a little harder. I'm not looking for a relaxation massage. I want a deep tissue sports massage. You know what I mean? I want something that's going to, and that's probably a little bit more my speed. And I may or may not be speaking for all implementers. The other thing is, I will say this just in closing. I know we may be going a little over time, so this may or may not make the cut. But the one thing that I will point out that is a great advantage, and this is it in the S&L world, and I say this a lot to the leadership team. Jason, the visionary, has done a really good job staying in the visionary seat. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't always been easy for him. I mean, he has said, hey, listen, this is really uncomfortable for me. I don't really understand, why I'm not participating in so much of the day-to-day, but he has stayed there. And I know there've been times and he would say as well, but that those things are normal, slipbacks or whatever it might be. But he has stayed in that role and elevated. And the leaders, the reason why I really believe Reid is saying what he's saying and he's so attached to elevate and delegate and elevate is because they've seen their visionary do that very, very well. And the visionary is rooting that leadership team on to do the same thing. And I think that just ties into the ideal company to get on EOS is one that really wants to embrace these tools, engage in these tools. They don't want to dabble. This is a system for managing human energy, not managing tasks. Mm-hmm. And they really want that for their company and their people.
Well, that's awesome. And I'll give a shout out to Jason. Jason, we haven't met, but thank you for being a visionary entrepreneur who does so much for so many, including your leadership team, and passing that belief down and enabling your organization with EOS. So we appreciate y'all's story. So Reid and Jeff, it's been an awesome conversation. Let's keep the conversation going. If we get down the road and need to do an episode 2 and 3, I'm good with that.
Excellent.
I'd love that. Thanks, Jamie.
Enjoyed it. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Reid.